something that really changed my perspective was that I didn't need to be the life of the party in order to make new friends. And I think a lot of times introverts have this idea. They have this idea that like you have to be able to like talk to like 10 people at a party to like make a bunch of new friends. But in reality, what you could do is just double down on your strengths, which is one-on-one conversations. Like a lot of introverts are really good at one-on-one conversations because they're good at listening and they ask good questions. And if you could double down on those two things, being good at listening and asking good questions, you'll have so many friends. Like you'll have too many friends if you just talk to a lot of the people around you and you start conversations. And and from me doing that, it's helped me in so many different ways. Like I've gotten so many opportunities just by starting conversations with the person next to me. Actually, like I make content. I'm a comedian as well. I make comedy skits on Instagram, and some of my comedy videos have gone viral that have starred like people who are I've just started a conversation with, like people, actresses, actors, videographers who I just like randomly met. They've helped me with videos that have gone viral. That have helped me like get closer to my goals, right? And I wasn't always like this. I wasn't always like starting conversations and just meeting new people consistently. I used to be really like socially anxious. I was like actually so socially anxious in high school that if I liked a girl and she liked me back, and one of my friends was like, "Oh, she's not that cute," I'd be like, "Oh yeah, she's not that cute." So I would like lie to myself because I was so concerned about like what my friends thought, which is not a good place to be because you don't want to be in a position where you're not following your own intuition and what you want out of your own life, where you're like just following what other people want from you. And the other thing is like you can't really guess what other people want from you. So it's like it's not even what other people want from you. It's like your idea of what people want from you. Getting a little bit sidetracked, but if you're an introvert and you double down on your strengths and you start conversations, then it'll become so easy to like make new friends. And the way to start conversations, you could use my chat framework. This is what I found is the easiest way to start a conversation. But basically, you comment on what's around you, you highlight something about yourself, you assess if the other person wants to talk to you, and then you toss it back to the other person by asking a question. So if you've assessed that they want to talk to you, right? So here's a good example. Like let's say you're at lunch at work, you see the person next to you is eating like a grilled cheese. So you could just comment on something around you, but just in this case, grilled cheese. You could be like, "Oh, you got grilled cheese. Like I used to eat that all the time growing up." Right? So now you've commented on something that's relevant to both of you, like in the moment. They could tell that you're paying attention. And then you highlighted something about yourself. You're like, "I used to eat that all the time growing up." Right? And then based on their body language, you can kind of tell if they want to talk to you. So if they're just like, "Yeah, okay," they probably don't want to talk to you, right? But if they open up a little bit and they're like, "Oh yeah, grilled cheese is my favorite. This is like the third time I've had it this week." Then it's like, okay, clearly this person probably wants to have a conversation with you, right? Then you can just toss back to them and be like, "Oh, like what do you do for work here?" If you don't know them, right? So that's one easy way to start a conversation. And it's like an acronym that I've made that's hopefully easy to remember: chat. So that's how you start conversations, and you can do that anywhere. And then you just ask good questions, like tell people about yourself and try and include like a little bit of a sense of humor, and then you'll make like a bunch of friends. And it becomes a lot easier over time because initially when you start doing this, it'll take a little more thinking than once you get experience at this. Because the more you start conversations, the more you meet new people, the easier it gets because it becomes instead of coming from your mind, it starts to come from your gut. Because you become I'm talking about communication skills, and I'm not doing a great job communicating right now. Anyway, it becomes more natural because it comes from your gut, because you start to get into like somewhat of a flow state. Instead of like thinking out every single move, it becomes more of a flow state. So like you feel like you're in the zone. You know that there's this term like the zone. Basically, it's short for the zone of proximal development, and that's what it feels like when you're in a flow state. It's like the same thing, the zone, the flow. But basically, it's like you're not really thinking too much. You're just acting in a way that is like aligned with how you feel you should. And that's kind of how I feel when I make videos. I try to get into that flow state because I think that's where like the best ideas and the way you express yourself come from. So the more you start conversations, the more you'll be able to get in that flow state. But here's the thing with like the flow state and like a social flow state or the zone. You can't do it in fear. Like you can't be in the zone and also be fearful. So you have to like get over the fear of starting conversations, meeting new people, asking people out on dates. You have to get over that fear, and then you'll start to feel like the flow state. because they can't be the same, right? You can't have like a bunch of fear and also be in a flow state. But once you start to get over the fear, and the way to do that is by like consistently facing it, then you start to feel like you're in a flow state sometimes. And that'll help like not just like your friendships or relationships, but it'll also help you in work because like communication skills are so important. And that's also why part of the reason why I make these videos is because the more videos I make, the better I get at communicating. So I'm like, okay, cool, let me just double down on this skill. And also, this is what I want to help people with, right? I'm offering like a free coaching session with the link in the description. So if you want to get better at communication skills, another thing you could do is like by practicing is making videos. Like that's what I'm doing right now. I see a lot of introverts use it as either an excuse or like something that they're like not happy with. Like they're like, oh man, like extroverts have it so easy. But in reality, like you could have it that easy too if you just double down on your strengths, which are probably listening, asking good questions. And in order to do that, you have to be able to start conversations, which you can use my chat framework, which I mentioned previously. All right, and listen, my mouth always gets a little dry. Like talking for this long, it definitely adds up. I should have gotten my tea. Sometimes I have tea to make this a little bit easier. But anyway, listen, I'm not saying like beginning a new habit of starting conversations, asking good questions, and really listening, actively listening. I'm not saying that this is going to be necessarily easy, but I do think it will be worth it. Life's not easy, but it's worth it. Take care.